Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see so many old friends and see so many new friends as well. I'm very happy to finally be here in Lubbock. I endured a 4-hour flight, 2 cancellations, 1 overnight stay in Dallas, and another hour flight to get to Lubbock. So I'm very happy to be here. So the topic that I'm going to be presenting today is a series of practice strategies that I've sort of come up with when we're learning multi-percussion solos. Multi-percussion as an instrument genre is an interesting thing. Because each piece is so unique with very few exceptions, each one has its own setup. It has its own notation. It has its own clef sometimes. And then we get into graphic notation, and that just throws a whole other monkey wrench into it. Multi-percussion doesn't really have the curriculum infrastructure that, say, snare drum does, or mallet, or timpani, or drum set, or whatnot. So a lot of times, just about all the time, when we are learning multi-percussion solos, it's always through a needs-based curriculum. You know, we always say we want to learn the instrument, not the music. Well, with multi-percussion, we kind of have very little choice but to learn the music and not really learn the instrument. So what this session is doing is presenting a series of strategies that can help sort of to remedy that situation. So when you're learning a multi-percussion solo, you are dealing with 2 main obstacles. First, you or your students, whoever is preparing the solo, must first develop a comfortability with the setup. You must first develop a comfortability with the setup. Even though we are proficient in the individual instruments, whether it's bongos, snare drum, toms, steel pipes, you know, whatever, that individual identity ceases to exist and it becomes part of this new idea. Again, when you're learning a multi-percussion solo, you're learning a new instrument. You're not learning a bunch of individual instruments, you're learning a new instrument. So that's the first learning obstacle that you have to overcome. The second one that you have to overcome is you have to become comfortable with the score. I mean, we all know that percussion notation is not universal by any means of it, and multi-percussion is just a big expansion of the fact that it's not universal. I mean, pieces by the same composer, you look at Xenakis, you have Safa, and then you have Ribons, they're completely different from one another. So, again, 2 major learning obstacles that you have to overcome. First is setup comfortability, and the second is score comfortability. So just for the interest of time, I'm going to introduce 2 setup strategies from the handout, and then 2 score strategies that I have today, and then in the breakout session, I will expand upon those a little bit further. So to demonstrate the setup strategies and the score strategies, I'm using a piece that I commissioned called Time Intermittent by Corey Robinson. Corey Robinson teaches at the University of Texas at Tyler in the Dallas area, and is a very good friend of mine, and he wrote this piece for me, and I premiered it at my faculty recital at the University of Utah this past March. So, the first strategy that I'm going to outline for you is just improvisation. It's very simple. Simply all that you do is you simply go up to the instrument and just improvise, or what have you. Don't judge me on my improvisation skills. So it's very open-ended. It creates an open-ended approach to developing familiarity with the setup. You're not spinning your wheels trying to learn the notation right from the get-go. And I would recommend that this is one of the first things that you have your students do when they're learning multi-percussion solos, to go up and simply improvise on it. And not be bogged down by the notation. If you want to add another layer to it, you can do improvisation on the setup alongside a computerized rhythm section like they have through the app for iReal Pro, which some of us use for a jazz vibraphone. It's very hokey, but it adds like another layer just to keep it interesting and engaging. With the strategies that I've outlined, I've tried to keep it diverse in order to address different learning strengths, whether you're dealing with more people that learn better visually, orally, or kinesthetically. And in addition to that, we also have opportunities to improve certain areas of the musicianship, whether it is improvisation, composition, or dictation. So these strategies helps to sort of kill many birds with one stone. So the second setup strategy I'm going to talk about today is idiokinetics for the setup. So one of my favorite mallet books of all time is Idiokinetics by Gordon Stout. I was very fortunate that Tom Burr introduced it to me when I was doing my master's at the University of Texas. And what it does is it develops a fundamental muscle memory of the setup so as you can increase your visual focus on the score. So if you're not familiar with idiokinetics, basically you select one instrument, or one note, or in this case one instrument, that's going to serve as a rotation note. You're going to create a little mini exercise that utilizes this rotation and one instrument above and one instrument below. And then you're going to play the exercise having your eyes focus solely on that rotation note. And above here is the instrumentation for time intermittent. You have left-hand instruments and you have right-hand instruments. And the red box identifies the rotation note. Now this is going to be an instrument that's going to generally be in the middle of the setup, or if it's something that, with the nature of the composition, kind of centers around that, that's up to your discretion. So basically what you do is I'm going to just focus on the snare drum and just play. Does is it helps to build a relationship with the setup, and comfortability with the setup, just the way that idiokinetics helps develop a relationship and a comfortability with the marimba. So that's it for the setup strategies that I will outline, and now I'm going to go over to score strategies. So the first one that I'm going to do is record, that I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to demonstrate, but I'm going to talk about it, is record and transcribe. So this gives students the opportunity to write and dictate what they hear using the language of the setup. So the first step that you're going to do is you're going to hit the record button. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to play a small improvised phrase on that setup. And then you're going to play back the recording, and then you're going to transcribe what you just played. Now I will say, make sure that you do not have your students play very rhythmically busy, very fast, energetic sections that are just impossible to transcribe in one or two listenings. It's all about building up a familiar notation and immersing yourself with that. The second setup strategy that I'm going to talk about is flashcards. So, very beginning students that first learn how to read music, a lot of people like to use flashcards. So it increases, and it's great because it increases the speed in recalling the score's notation and the symbols. So basically what you'll do is you'll create a flashcard. You'll have a single note from the setup, from the score on one side, and then a diagram of the setup with that note's place and the setup clearly identified, just like that. And much in the same way that I said flashcards help beginners learn how to read music, you should have a similar strategy going forward to this. So I would recommend with this that your students drill these, usually right before they play a note on the setup, or if they're at home watching Netflix and in between episodes of Stranger Things or whatever the new Netflix show is. Just drill it for like 50 seconds. Just go through them. Okay, that note is on that instrument, so forth and so on. It gives you a chance to really drill it. So that kind of comes to the end of my session. So the big thing is that not all these strategies might not work for you or your students. If some of them work for you, great. If none of them work for you, that's even more fantastic. That means that you come by it naturally. So some setups and scores will be easier to apply than others, especially when we get into graphic notation or indeterminate notation. But I will say that even if you're dealing with graphic notation, there is some type of representation of the graphic in the score through something that you play on the setup. So these strategies can still be used for that. And the last thing is just be creative. If you have other strategies that you feel will help you or your students become more acclimated to multi-percussion solos, then by all means, come up with them. But again, one of the things that will be beneficial is if you try to think within the frames of developing comfortability with the setup and comfortability with the score. So in the breakout session, sort of the tentative agenda is I'll further explain the strategies that I've outlined in the handout, including the ones that I haven't mentioned. I'll also have additional handouts for you. The first is going to be a multi-percussion curriculum pyramid that I've come up with, sort of ways to sort of build up to recital repertoire. If you have students that you feel like just want to spend a semester or a couple weeks on just solo multi-percussion, this would be good for that. I also have a timeline of multi-percussion literature. So if you are teaching a percussion literature class, or if you have graduate students that are getting ready to take comprehensive exams, then this would be a great handout for that specific topic. And then lastly, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions and we'll discuss your thoughts and philosophies on solo multi-percussion. So thank you very much.